I grew up in a fundamentally patriarchal system. Men were granted supernatural powers from God, and women were left to fend in the ordinary bodies allotted them. This series started as part of a call and response collaboration with artist Samantha Fields. We each chose a news item from the day we were born to respond to with an artwork. I chose a society piece on a party at the Playboy Mansion. I wanted to meander into the world of images a girl born in 1971 inherited. Collaging with contrasting tapes on the centerfold Miss April 1971, I created something both beautiful and terrible. The image was so absorbing and quarrelsome, I was inspired to monumentally remake it. The 6-foot by 14-foot image was first painted realistically and then troweled over with waxy paint mimicking the tape. 90% of the original painting obliterated. I ruptured Miss April, already torn between the scholar, the odalisque, and the eater of forbidden fruit, into a fractal, including desire, rage, and analysis. I wanted to see what you get when Russian constructivism makes a baby with Goya and hands her over to be raised by Andrea Dworkin. Picasso twisted women in space. He slivered them into planes and bent them inside out to show us the totality of his particular understanding. I was curious to explore my conflicted relationship to these patriarchal images of beauty and desire, at once seduced and repulsed. Slabs of paint were suffocating violation, protective barrier, and teasing veil. This was not a linear narrative, the way Cubist space is not a linear narrative. I became infatuated with this paradox and made 2 more paintings. The second was based on the April 1971 Playboy, page 122, Lana Wood. Could page 122 be the center fold? Could Lana Wood ever be anything besides the little sister? She looked cold. I bucketed her in silver glitter. Can something as cheap and emasculated as silver glitter be valuable? What if I paint her hair with a car detailing brush? Will she inherit all the strength of a muscle car? What if I enrobe her in the jizz of expressionism? Will it keep her warm? What if I set it all in the conceptual fog of the photograph? Can painting undie long enough for one more drink? The last painting was inspired by a 1971 Interview magazine portrait of Candy Darling. Her infinitely blonde vapor of a body, now forever 29. Long fingers and legs made of celluloid and avedon. My foundation was a picture, her meaning, the seam. Between 24-carat, valuable for its rarity, cocoons of whitewash burying the treasure, renovation in imitation gold leaf, and punctuation with a black beauty mark capable of hiding an open wound. Quantum physicists have proved it, but artists have always known it. Single particles exist in multiple places at one time, and truth is not a fixed point. Artists are the guardians of the freedom to be broken. Some of my favorite male creators are broken. Belmer, Balthus, Sheila, Desaad, Fragonard, Cheever, Bataille. I want this privilege for myself. I want to explore dissonance, and instead of having it translated into a betrayal of my gender, it might be translated as a meditation on the labyrinth of our human experience. For about 37 minutes on November 26, 2021, I thought I might have lost Rory forever. For about 29 of those minutes, my mind cataloged every worst-case scenario and every single unbearably beloved thing about him. I ran from one end of the lake to the other, describing his coat and hair, to each hiker I encountered when what I wanted to scream was, "Stop the fucking world, because it is not worth existing without this child." He thought he'd told us he was going for a walk, over the bridge, past the tree cathedral, up the granite scree field to the table rock, where a boy can clearly see the path of his childhood behind him and a ridge of unknowns ahead. He thought we knew the mountain was holding him safe and the ice was recording his footprints like breadcrumbs. He couldn't know that the two folks who threw their bodies together to make him were ready to turn the world inside out, because he might possibly have been the best thing we have ever done. I saw my first rock concert at the second incarnation of the Salt Palace in downtown Salt Lake City in 1987. Jethro Tull. Somehow I convinced my mom it was essentially classical music because he played the flute. It was an awkward scene with a sea of folding chairs set up to discourage rowdy behavior that people mostly weren't sitting in. We still managed to smoke a bowl somewhere in the 23rd row. Thick as a brick never rang so true. I saw Soundgarden at the reincarnation of the original Salt Palace. We had to drive an hour through the desert to the edges of the Great Salt Lake to get there. I drank enough Black Label before we left that I had to make my friend Bill pit stop on the side of the freeway before I pissed myself. The show was so loud, you could feel your blood shuddering. Somehow the words Salt Palace seem a better name for the state than Utah. Salt outlines the people, faceted, alkaline, dry-cured. And the palace is everywhere. The mouth of Little Cottonwood with its vast panes of granite, the velveteen sky ribboned with stratus and cirrus, the salted lake etched with brine shrimp and flies, a mirror into the apocalypse. I grew up in a palace of salt, all corrosion, salivation, and kingdoms of God. The show there lasted about 18 years, a ballad of a princess and a king, the melody brined in tears, and the bridge built on captured territory.